When my mom looked at me and said, "You're not even half the woman your sister is," my chest tightened. But this time I didn't stay quiet. I pushed my chair back and said calmly, "Then let her pay your rent." My dad froze. "Rent? What rent?" And right there at the dinner table, my secret of 3 years came out. My name is Melanie Harris, most people call me Maddie. I'm 28, live in Portland, and work as a financial manager. My life looks fine from the outside, steady job, small apartment, a few close friends. But every Friday night family dinner ruins that peace. In my parents' house, dinner isn't a choice. If I try to skip, my mom calls again and again until I give up. My dad always says, "This family has a seat for you. Don't leave it empty." My sister Claire is the family's pride. She's older, confident, and successful. My parents praise her for everything, her law career, her new house, her perfect life. Meanwhile, I'm the quiet one who works hard and gets ignored. That night, the talk was all about Claire again. My dad said, "She deserves it." My mom added, "Claire always makes us proud." I kept eating in silence, holding in the same old anger. What they never talk about is me. Since I was 17, I worked to pay my own way. And for the last 3 years, I quietly helped my parents keep their house. It started after the pandemic. One night my mom called crying. She said my dad lost a big contract and they couldn't pay the mortgage. She begged, just this once. So I sent the money. Then it happened again. And again. Soon, it became automatic, money leaving my account every month. I kept telling myself, family comes first. But my savings disappeared, and my dream of buying my own place faded. Over 36 payments, I gave them more than $70,000. And still, not one thank you. So when my mom compared me to Claire again, something snapped, quietly. That's why I said, let her pay. My mom denied it. My dad said it was inappropriate to mention it at dinner. Claire sat there silent, like it wasn't her problem. That's when I finally understood, it was never just about money. It was about being invisible. I looked at them and said, no matter what I do, you don't see me. I'm done. That night I went home, opened my bank account, and stared at the scheduled transfer every month on the 15th. My hand shook, but I pressed cancel. Then I pulled out the folder I'd kept for years, bank statements, month by month. I added it all up and just stared at the total. Money that could have been my future. But I spent it keeping theirs standing. They never told anyone. It was like it never happened. I leaned back and looked at the bank papers on the table. Under all the hurt, I felt something new, relief. For the first time in 3 years, I was free. No more money leaving my account every month. No more bank alerts. The empty feeling inside me was scary, but it also felt like freedom. I thought about the $72,000. If I saved again, I could use that money for my own life, maybe even a down payment on my own apartment. I smiled and whispered, that money should have been for my home. For the first time, it felt possible. That night, I sat in silence with the papers still on the table. They reminded me of what I lost, but also what I could start again. I went to bed knowing tomorrow would be a new chapter, one based on my choices, not my family's demands. The next morning, I stopped living on autopilot. Instead of rushing to work feeling heavy, I put on running shoes and ran by the Willamette River. The air was cold and fresh, and each step made me feel lighter. For once, I was doing something for me. Little by little, I changed my life. I joined a cooking class every Thursday. No one there judged me or compared me to my sister. They just saw Maddie, someone who loved pasta, burned bread sometimes, and laughed with new friends. I also started hiking on weekends near Mount Hood. Standing on the mountain, breathing in the clean air, I felt alive again. At home, I read books, made tea, and enjoyed quiet nights without guilt. Work got better too. With less stress, I focused more. I took on harder projects, stayed late, and one day my director noticed. He told me he liked my dedication. That one moment meant more than all my mother's harsh words. A month later, I became team lead. I stood in front of the board and presented my plan. When people clapped, I realized I wasn't living in anyone's shadow anymore. I was building my own life. Then an email came from Seattle. A fast-growing fintech company offered me a director role, over 40% more pay and equity. I stared at the email, scared and excited. Moving would be a big change, but it also felt like the final step out of my family's control. I called my best friend. She screamed, "Take it." So I replied, "I accept." 4 simple words, and I felt free. Before I moved, I walked around Portland and said, "Goodbye," to places that held so many hard memories. Packing didn't make me sad. It felt like taking off old chains. On my last day, I ran again by the Willamette River, this time with no weight on my chest. I knew life would still be hard sometimes, but it would be my life. 6 months in Seattle, everything changed fast. The job was tough but exciting. People respected my work, not my family name. My savings grew every month. One night, I added up my money and realized I finally had enough for a down payment. That weekend, I toured apartments. Some were too dark, some too far. I didn't want to rush. I wanted a place that felt right. Then I walked into a 1-bedroom unit on the 16th floor. Huge windows. Bright sunlight. A clear view of Seattle with the Space Needle in the distance. I stepped onto the balcony, felt the cool wind, and knew it immediately. This is my home. A few weeks later, I signed the contract. My hands shook, not from fear, but from happiness. On my first day, I walked into the new apartment and set my bag down on the bare floor. I stood in the middle of the living room and looked around. No furniture. No voices. Just quiet space, and a clear view of the Space Needle. I took a deep breath, and one thought landed in my chest like a bell. For the first time, everything is mine. Not borrowed. Not gifted. Not earned by staying silent. I did this with my own work. In the days that followed, I made the place feel like me. I bought a light gray sofa, a small oak dining table, and a tall bookshelf that almost touched the ceiling. I filled it with my favorite books and a few green plants. On the wall, I hung a landscape painting of Portland, a reminder of where I came from and what I survived. Every item I chose was picked with care. Not because I wanted to prove I had money, but because I wanted my home to reflect my choices, no one else's. At night, I often stood on the balcony and watched the city lights blink below. For the first time in years, I felt real peace. One evening, I took a photo from the balcony, just the edge of the Space Needle glowing in an orange sunset. I posted it online with a short caption. A new beginning. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire. "You're really something. Why didn't you tell the family?" I stared at the screen. Her words didn't feel like praise. They felt sharp, like she was annoyed, like my success threatened her place as the successful one. I started typing a reply, then stopped. I turned the phone face down on the table. Not because I had nothing to say. Because I didn't need to say anything anymore. I didn't need approval from Claire. Or my parents. Or anyone in my family. My life was proof enough. That night, I poured a glass of wine, turned on soft jazz, and sat on my new sofa. The apartment still looked a little empty, but inside, I felt full. Whole. I wasn't the old Maddie anymore, the one who gave and gave in silence. The one who lived in her sister's shadow. I was Maddie, the woman who walked away from the past and built her own life. A week later, on a quiet weekend afternoon, my phone rang again. The caller name surprised me. Mrs. Jensen. She was the elderly neighbor who lived across from my parents back in Portland. "Maddie, dear," she said kindly, "how have you been? I saw something today, and I think you should know. I walked past your parents' house and noticed a big banner outside. I'll send you a photo. Before I could answer, the picture arrived. My stomach tightened. Hanging above the front porch was a large white banner in bold red letters. "Congratulations, Claire, for preserving the family home." I read it again. And again. My vision blurred. My throat went tight. Preserving the family home? So that was it. They weren't just ignoring what I'd done. They were rewriting the story, making it look like Claire saved everything. I sank onto my sofa, holding my phone with shaking fingers. Suddenly my bright Seattle apartment felt too quiet, too small. Memories rushed in. Late nights moving money. My mother's messages. "Just this once. Please, Maddie. If you don't help, the bank will take the house." And the bank statements. The total I tried not to think about too often. More than $72,000. Now it felt like I had been erased. Like I never mattered. Like my help never existed. The sadness came first, then something else rose underneath it, heat. Anger. A sharp, steady kind of strength. This wasn't just unfair. It was betrayal. They weren't forgetting me by accident. They were choosing to give the credit to Claire and wipe me out of the story completely. I let the tears fall, but they didn't feel like the old tears. These weren't helpless tears. This time, they came with a decision. I will not let the truth disappear. They could hang banners. They could praise Claire. They could even put her name on the house if they wanted. But I had something stronger. Proof. Every transfer. Every receipt. Every message. Every email. The full trail. I went straight to the dining table where I kept my financial files. I pulled out the folder I had started long ago, organized, dated, and labeled. There it was again, clear as day. $72,000. I flipped through the papers, my finger tracing the numbers like they were written in fire. They can rewrite the story. But I will bring the truth into the light. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I kept for the past 3 years. I checked every payment again, month by month, and built a clean report. I added charts to show the pattern clearly. There was no confusion anymore. Without me, that house would have been lost. I also printed my mother's messages, especially the ones that began the same way. "Just this once." I stared at those words and felt my chest rise and fall. When I saved the final report, I leaned back in my chair. I knew a storm was coming. But for the first time, I wasn't scared. If the truth embarrassed them, that was their problem. I had been silent long enough. I had been treated like a shadow long enough. Now I would let the facts speak. A few days later, I heard new gossip through my cousin Sarah, the only relative who still checked on me. She called with hesitation in her voice. "Maddie. I think you should know something. Your parents are planning a big party in Seattle. A family appreciation dinner. They asked me to make the slideshow." I already knew where this was going. Sarah added quietly, "They want it to be about Claire. They keep saying she preserved the family home. It feels wrong, but I don't know what to do." After we hung up, I sat for a long time staring out at the city lights. The banner wasn't enough for them. Now they wanted a party to seal the lie in front of everyone. If I stayed silent again, it would mean I agreed to be erased. So I worked like I was preparing a serious project. I scanned every bank statement from 2020 to 2023. I highlighted every transfer to my parents. I labeled each one clearly, mortgage help, emergency support, just this month. Then I built a timeline, what happened, when it happened, and why I sent the money. I added the most important proof of all, my mother's message from that night. "If you don't help this time, the bank will take the house." Right under that screenshot, I placed the chart. 36 times just this once. Anyone could see it wasn't random. It was a pattern. A system. A slow drain. I imagined my parents' faces if they saw it. I imagined Claire's reaction. I knew they would deny it, get angry, call me dramatic. But this time, I didn't need to argue. Numbers don't argue. Then Sarah called again. I finished the slideshow, she said, exhausted. It's just photos of the house, Claire smiling on the porch, and captions like, "Thank you, Claire, for keeping our family fire alive." It's so fake. I took a breath and said calmly, "Sarah, can you send me the file? I want to make a few suggestions." She hesitated, but she agreed. When it arrived, I opened it and scrolled to the last slide. Just as expected, big words across the screen. "Thank you, Claire, for preserving our family home." I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I got to work. I made a copy of the slideshow and kept everything the same at the start, the same photos, the same captions. I wanted the party to feel normal, right up until the moment it wasn't. Then I added new slides after Claire's section. A timeline of every transfer. A chart showing 3 years of payments. Screenshots of my mother's messages. The total number, clear and bold, $72,000. For the final slide, I kept it simple. A photo of the house. And one line beneath it. This was my contribution. Don't forget it. When I played the slideshow from beginning to end, my heart pounded. Not from fear. From readiness. That night, I saved the file in 3 places: my laptop, a USB drive, and the cloud. I printed the report and clipped it neatly together. Then I placed everything in my bag. I could already picture the moment. My parents smiling. Relatives clapping. Claire soaking in praise. And then, quietly, I would step forward, plug in the USB, and let the truth appear on the screen. No shouting. No begging. No fighting. Just the truth, finally shown where everyone could see it. I didn't need a long speech. Just one line kept looping in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. If the truth embarrasses you, that is not my fault. In the days before the family dinner, I looked normal from the outside. Calm. Steady. Like nothing was wrong. I still woke up early, went to work, sat through meetings, and signed papers like any other day. But inside me, something was burning. Every night, I came home and sat at my dining table. Right in front of me was a folder and a small USB, placed neatly side by side. I would stare at them like they were a countdown clock. Then I would practice the moment in my head again and again. How I would walk in. How I would plug in the USB. How I would speak that one sentence. No shaking hands. No cracking voice. No second guessing. I wanted it clean and sharp, like a judge delivering a verdict without raising their tone. Because I was tired of being the quiet sister. Tired of being the other one. Tired of being the shadow standing behind Claire while everyone acted like she was the only sun in the sky. This time, they were going to see me. The restaurant in downtown Seattle looked like it belonged in a movie. Bright windows. Warm lights spilling out onto the sidewalk. Fancy cars lining the lot. It was the kind of place people chose when they wanted an event to feel important. I sat in my car for a long time before going in. From where I parked, I could already see silhouettes moving behind the glass, my relatives laughing, leaning close, making little circles of conversation like they always did. Everyone dressed up. Everyone glowing. Like they were arriving for a celebration. And I could already hear the voice in my head, dry and bitter. They call it a family dinner, but it's really another show for Claire. When I finally walked in, the smell of expensive food and perfume hit me at once. The main hall was drenched in golden light. A long table stretched across the room like a stage, and at the head of it stood my father. He held a microphone like it was his favorite accessory. He smiled like a man who believed every word he was about to say. My mother sat beside him, eyes shining with pride. And Claire, beautiful Claire, sat near the center in an emerald dress. Hair pinned perfectly. Soft smile. The picture of the good daughter. The one everyone loved to praise. I didn't walk in right away. I stood quietly near the doorway and listened. My father started speaking, voice warm and loud. "We are so fortunate to have Claire," he said. "The daughter who preserved the family home. The one who stepped up so we never lost the place that holds our history." Applause rose immediately, quick and eager. People nodded as if this was a story they already knew and loved. I watched relatives lean toward each other, whispering, smiling. And in all that praise, not one person said my name. Not one. Nobody mentioned the nights I stayed awake doing numbers in my head, trying to figure out how to stretch my paycheck far enough. Nobody mentioned the extra shifts. Nobody mentioned the 3 years I quietly sent money, again and again, like a human lifeline. It was like I had never existed. Then the slideshow began. The big screen lit up with photos, the house covered in winter snow, the porch lights glowing, the family smiling. There was Claire on the porch, looking proud. There were my parents with their arms around her. Across the slides were words written like captions to a fairy tale. "Thank you, Claire, for keeping the family fire alive. Claire, our pride. Claire, our heart." Glasses clinked. People laughed. Someone called out a toast. My hands tightened into fists under the table. My whole body felt hot, like my blood was boiling. But I didn't move. I didn't react. I didn't rush. I waited. Because timing mattered. This wasn't going to be a messy fight. This was going to be the truth, placed down in the middle of the table where everyone could see it. Then the final slide appeared. Except it wasn't a thank you message. The screen flickered. The slideshow disappeared. And the projector displayed something new, a blank white background with bold black letters. Financial contributions 2022 to 2023. $72,000, Maddie. The room froze. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Chairs paused mid-scoot. A few people actually turned to the screen like they didn't believe what they were reading. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "What is that?" My heart hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears, but my face stayed calm. I stood up. Then I walked forward. Each step sounded loud on the wooden floor, steady, sharp, echoing through the silence. All eyes followed me like a spotlight. I stopped at the end of the room, lifted my chin, and said the only sentence I had been practicing for days. "If the truth embarrasses you, that is not my fault." For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the projector. Then, from somewhere near the corner, someone started clapping. Just one person at first. Then another. Then another. Until the clapping spread across the room like a ripple turning into a wave. I looked around and saw faces shifting, shock, confusion, anger, disappointment. Not at me. At my parents. My father's smile vanished. His face drained pale. He held the microphone so tightly his knuckles turned white, like he could squeeze the truth back into silence. My mother sat stiff, lips trembling, eyes wet. And Claire stared down at the table like it had suddenly become too bright to look up. Her cheeks burned red. Her mouth opened like she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. I didn't shout. I didn't insult anyone. I didn't call names. I simply told the truth. 3 years, I said, voice even. $72,000. Without that money, the house would have been gone. You know it. I know it. But you stayed quiet. You let a fake story grow. I looked right at my parents. So let the whole family hear the real one. The room erupted into whispers. An uncle leaned toward his wife and murmured, "I remember her working non-stop back then." An aunt shook her head slowly. So Maddie carried it, and Claire got the credit? The whispers spread fast, like fire catching on dry paper. My mother seemed to shrink into her chair. My father stayed stiff, jaw clenched, like he was swallowing a stone. I turned back toward the screen where the number still glowed, bright and undeniable. I lifted my hand and pointed. "This is the truth," I said. "This is who kept that house standing." Then I let the silence hang there for a beat longer, just to make sure it landed. And when the applause rose again, it wasn't polite. It was strong. A few relatives even stood. Claire lifted her head then, eyes filled with tears, looking at me like she wanted me to save her. But I didn't come to save anyone. I came to stop being erased. The dinner never recovered. The laughter died. The lightness disappeared. The whole room shifted, and suddenly it wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a judgment. Not for me. For them. I took a slow breath, turned, and started walking out. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, soft and shaking. "Maddie." I didn't turn around. I only said, calm as ever, "I already told you. The truth is never my fault." And I walked straight out. Outside, the Seattle night wrapped around me, cold air, city sounds, the smell of wet pavement. I stood on the restaurant steps and looked up at the sky, glittering with distant light. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel cruel. I felt relieved. Like I'd been holding a heavy weight for years and finally set it down. 2 days later, someone knocked on the door of my new apartment. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach tightened. It was my parents. My mother wore a heavy coat and looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen and red. My father stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I opened the door. They stepped inside and looked around my apartment, bright, clean, quiet. Walls painted in colors I chose. A space that felt like mine, not borrowed, not earned through suffering, not dependent on anyone's approval. My mother spoke first, voice cracking. "Maddie. I'm sorry. We were wrong. We should never have stayed silent. We should never have let you carry all of it." She swallowed hard. "After that dinner, we talked. We want to add your name to the deed. You deserve it." I just stood there, listening. And the strange part was, those words used to be exactly what I wanted. If she had said that a year ago, I might have cried. I might have believed it fixed everything. But standing in my own home, with my own keys on my own table, I realized something clearly. I didn't need their permission anymore. I shook my head. "I have a home now, Mom," I said. "I have my own life. I don't need to be tied to the past." My mother's lips trembled. My father cleared his throat. "But it's your work. You earned it." I looked at him, not angry, just steady. "What I deserve isn't a name on paper," I said. "What I deserve is respect." My voice stayed calm, but it didn't soften. "And you didn't give me that." Silence filled the room again, but this silence was different. Not dramatic. Not public. Not loud. Just real. Because we all knew the truth, they weren't offering the deed because they suddenly understood me. They were offering it because they were exposed. They stayed a few more minutes, saying small things, trying to repair something that had been breaking for years. But some cracks don't disappear just because someone finally admits they exist. When they left, I locked the door and leaned back against it. Then I sat down by the window and watched the city lights reflect on the river in the distance. And I thought about everything. The money I sent without being thanked. The nights I swallowed my pain while Claire was praised. The way my own family wrote me out of their story like I was nothing. But I also thought about what those years did to me. They didn't destroy me. They built me. They taught me that I could survive without being seen. That I could stand alone and still hold things up. That I could be wounded and still keep walking. And that's when I understood something simple. My value was never in the labels they gave me. Not the sensitive one. Not the less successful sister. Not the helper. My worth was always in the strength I built when nobody clapped for me. In the courage to keep going when it hurt. In choosing myself, even when it cost me. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let myself breathe. That chapter was over. I wasn't Claire's shadow anymore. I was Maddie, the woman who kept the house alive through silent sacrifice. But more importantly, the woman who kept herself whole. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Not a forced smile. A real one. Because I knew the truth now, deep in my bones. Your value is not what others call you. Your value is what you build inside yourself.